I'm going to mute my phone though.
Ryan Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Women on TV.tv, iTube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, and the Worldwide TV Network, which was formerly the Women's Broadcast TV Network. So today's special show is, I've been a fan of this young lady for a long time, and she didn't even know it. Because, you know, when it comes to voiceover talent, a lot of times you're that person behind the mic. And you don't always get a chance to show your face. But us people who love voiceover actors, we know who they are. We just don't always get a chance to see them. So, Mona, tell us who you are and where you came from.
Oh my goodness. Well, my name is Mona Marshall. Now married, it would be Mona Marshall Iannotti, but who is going to remember Iannotti? So Ashley Marshall was a legacy from my first husband. That's what I got out of the marriage, besides a lot of growth. But anyway, I started doing voiceover. Probably my first really big gig was like 80 or 81. And I studied with the late great Daws Butler. And I didn't know what voiceover was.
Did you really?
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
Holy crap, wow.
That's a fun story, though. That is a fun story.
I want to hear that.
I came out here from St. Louis to study acting. Okay, I went to school in Lawrenceburg, Missouri, had a degree in English literature, and one of my professors, ooh, what a pretty lady. Good grief, woman, you're beautiful. One of my professors said, if you're going to work on a master's, go out to California. LACC has an outstanding acting program. So I came out here, knew nothing about voiceover. And then in order to earn a living while I was studying, I started teaching 5th grade at a school that is no longer around called Hollywood Professional School. And in that class, it was 5th grade, and I had a young man named Billy Simpson who had just finished, he was in Dawes's workshop, 10 years old, and he had just done one of his first voiceover gigs with Richard Burton doing The Little Prince. And his mother would not stop telling me, you need to do voiceover. You can sing. You can do all kinds of voiceovers. You need to do voiceover. I'm going to shut her up. I was so arrogant then. To shut her up, because I wanted to be a very serious actress, I walked into the workshop and oh my God, my whole world opened up. Because in voiceover, you can do just about anything. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't even matter what sex you are. You can do it all. And Dawes was great because he was very encouraging, and he wrote us material. And the other part of that is he really allowed us to find our own voices. And he was such a great example. He really was. And from then on, I just never looked back, really. And and his great thing was, well, if you can't act in a 30-second commercial, maybe you can't act. So, and it's really interesting because I just got someone on my Instagram just said, well, I'm an actor. I do a lot of on-camera stuff. How do you grab a character and do that in a short period of time? Because, you know, if you're stage acting, you have a long time to grow into that character. And it's kind of the same thing. A lot of it's just being present. You read what that character is, and for me, I try to inhabit it so that it's like good improv. You think like that character. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with my background in acting, you know, and the training that I did have, and the studying I did. But part of that is you got to not be afraid to fail. Oh, and they're doing Armands.
And
anyway.
With that, we have to welcome Jessica Heim, one of our other co-hosts out of there. Hello.
She is so beautiful. Do you model, girl?
Thank you so much. I
want to know if you model, because you have
so
great
nice
people.
To meet you. I do model.
Yes.
I do a little bit of everything in the entertainment side of stuff. So yeah.
Well, you are honestly stunning. I'm an artist, so I can say that. I know beauty when I see it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. So lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Same to you.
And actually, I just came in on the tail end of I guess that was Brian's first question, and how you got started in all of this to begin with. And that was kind of one of my questions. Is I was going to ask the gentleman that you said that once you took that class and got involved, would you consider yourself that would have been the apprentice side of things? Did you study under anyone else, or was it more of you embraced what you already had naturally?
Pretty
and
much.
kind of went on from there.
Because I had a very solid acting background after LACC, because I did go through their course, which was phenomenal. And in that course, there was a man named Robert C. Board who taught voice production. Nothing to do with voiceover per se, except in the end, it had everything to do with voiceover. And I don't know if you know that I do Voices for Fun, 2 minutes on my Instagram, was on YouTube, where I talk to people and give them parts of what I learned way back there from Robert C. Board. And so you learned about placement and how to use the voice, you learned about breathing, you learned about articulation, you learned about really grabbing a character and going for it. But one of the things we would have to do every Friday is we would have to take a classical piece and use all the areas of voice placement believably. So,
Wow.
and then when that course ended, Robert C. Board started a school for 12 of us. And it was a combination of what is now the New School, which came out of originally, I think, Boleslavsky, and is now the New School, which is a lot of method acting. But he also combined that with RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. So we got the best of both worlds. We learned technique, and we also learned how to become that character. When we were doing period pieces, he would not let us start dialogue or monologue, depending on which, until we could establish in the way we moved what period it was. So going into Dawes's class, I had all that background, and then I studied improvisation with D. Marcus. And because I had a background in opera, I was able to do opera improv. So all of that kind of converged and came together. But those were my major teachers. And, you know, they've given me so much.
Of course.
So
yeah, it's amazing that you were able to study with such learned people in the first place. You know, how, if you were to put all of that experience into these days, how could you throw out a price of how much that might actually cost?
Honestly, no. I think that, first of all, we all bring something of our backgrounds, no matter what that is. In acting, we're always doing that. And I think that's priceless. And there are some people who've had no training, and I don't recommend this. Most people need some kind of training and are just natural. That's very few. I think it's important to learn technique. It's important to know how to use the voice. My Voices for Fun is really about that. I cannot tell you how to break into the business. First of all, it's different from when I broke in, and I knocked on a lot of doors. But I do know things like, if you truly believe within yourself that you are meant to do something, then you don't give up. I mean, I waited tables all during the time I was, trying to break into the business. And I remember working at IHOP, for 8 hours at night, getting up early in the morning and going to my classes for 4 hours, and then finding time to rehearse whatever we were doing. Now, mind you, I was in my 20s, but, I'm a firm believer that you have to be grounded in terms of who you are. And that doesn't happen in a moment. That happens in living life. You guys know this because you both are pursuing all kinds of things that make your heart tick. And I think it's very important to help other people.
Mona, did you ever?
So where there's a will, there's a way. That's what my mother's always told me.
Well, I think your mother's right. For me, I would just phrase it a little differently. I believe that we are all given gifts, all different kinds of gifts. And I think for me, I have to know that that's a gift that passes through me. And if I'm really clear and I'm listening to what I need to do, then I feel at peace with myself. Even if you get frustrated and so on and so forth, I'm at peace. And that's important, especially in the world we live in now. Because my will doesn't always work for me. Sometimes it trips me up. And I want to pursue something, and really I should be looking in another direction. So I try to stay open, and I do a lot of prayer and meditation, I'll be honest with you. But you got to have if you know you're supposed to be doing something, you have to be open and give allegiance to that. And I think that that might be, your mom and I are just using different words, kind of saying the same thing.
Oh yeah, well yes, you have to be aware, especially like you said, in these times we're forced. I know that I have been forced to be more aware of just me as a person and my existence, and what I guess up until now we all have been so busy that we just do it because we do. We don't think about why or how. It just kind of is, and we've been forced to take a step back and say, wait a minute, so this is me as a person. Who am I? How am I bettering the world? Because that's what it boils down to. It's yes, we're surviving, but you can't survive on your own. You have to help others, and you can't just rely on yourself to take care of everything.
You know, Netflix has I guess acquired a lot of dramas and dramas and comedies, and they are dubbing them into different languages. And I just had the privilege of doing one, which I play matriarch. Who, when their business fails, I decide that I'm going to use my formula for grass. But the point is, especially we were doing that when the pandemic first hit. Now I can go into a studio and they're very careful. But in the beginning, I was recording here. Now the challenge with that is you've got an engineer who's got to now deal with delay, not just getting it to fit the mouth. Okay, and it's not a cartoon, so the mouth moves differently, obviously, than a straight cartoon. And an outstanding director, and you have to give allegiance to the woman. For me, the woman who was actually doing the original, who was French. Never in my life have I felt more aware of the fact that it takes a village to do anything. And you know, if you expand that idea, that's exactly what is happening. Because we've all been used to doing things very differently, and then suddenly, whoa, there's a pandemic now, and we have to change the way we do things. And South Park, by the way, is a perfect example of this, because they're all scrambling around, hoping that there's another season, and they're doing a great job so far. So, God bless them.
When did you know that you made it?
Have I made it?
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
It's really interesting. I don't think of that because I'm always thinking, okay, well, what can I do next? And now with my own, hopefully, adult animated series, which is entitled The Adventures of Puss and Dick, A Survivor's Guide to Relationships. You know, you never, for me, I don't ever think I've made it. I mean, I'm just very fortunate that I have been able to make a decent living as an actor doing voices. So that's kind of not how I think of myself. I just think of myself as an actor, and gee, what's next? What do I get to do next? And with Adventures of Puss and Dick, because I'm not known in the industry as a writer, nor are my two partners, this is kind of a really big challenge, because I can't walk in the door and say, okay, listen, I got this great idea. We've got a terrific Bible. Here it is. It's really working on, what we're doing now is working on what will become our demo script. And probably, God willing and me willing, we will do a 5-minute demo of it. And it's really strong. It embodies everything I think about in terms of male or masculine and feminine energy coming together and being able to communicate. Our characters just happen to be very cute penises and vaginas. Well, and that idea comes from, if you strip away all the surfaces, that's what we all have in common. Even if you are trans, even if you are not sure, we have that. We all have masculine and feminine energy within us. You lead with one usually, as opposed to the other. So this has been an idea that I've had for a long, long time, and really, hopefully, will not only be outrageously funny, but will really kind of give people some woke, so that they really begin to communicate and respect our differences and appreciate our sameness.
Mona, I have 4 names from you. Give me a one-word answer. Nancy Cartwright.
Fantastic. She was the one that actually told me that Dawes had died. Gosh, the last thing we actually did together was something before she started doing Bart Simpson, but she's a sweetheart. And God knows, very talented.
Don LaFontaine.
The voice, he was brilliant. I don't think I ever worked with Don, but I would hear him sometimes when I was doing recordings in the other room. And what engineers like to do in the old days, well, still do because they do it at Disney, is they would, those sessions can get kind of raucous. So we would get a little snippet of Don LaFontaine just doing something outrageously funny, that would help us to loosen up. So, but brilliant. I mean, to be born with a voice like that, it's like James Earl Jones, who is like one of my favorite voices in the entire world. The man could read the phone book to me. He could say my name. There are people who have those kinds of voices, and the fact that they can use them and use them well is just so uplifting.
Well, I'm going to get to those two names in a minute. Then Jessica, I'm going to tell you a couple stories on relating to all of those people. Mel Blanc.
I never had a chance to work with Mel, but this is really interesting. I always respected him and thought he was wonderful. But on Sirius, they have station 148, and now Dawes used to play us old radio shows, okay? Well, Mel Blanc started out doing film and doing radio. So it is so incredible to hear some of his characters that later became Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. You hear him doing characters in the radio shows. There's something so exciting about hearing that. But heard he was just wonderful to work with. Now,
before I give you the fourth one, Jessica, I'm going to tell you something real quick. So Don LaFontaine, in case you don't know, you may know, we always heard the voice. He was the guy who did every single movie trailer. Hey, every one. Now, Mona, Don and I became friends. I actually rode in his limousine with him to sessions.
Oh my gosh.
I was so great that he had a professional limousine driver, and he could do 12, 16 sessions within 3-5 minutes, 7 most. Yeah. And he was so good that he had to have a limousine driver take him to all his jobs because he'd be in and out before he could find a parking spot. And then what happened is this, Mona, is Don and I, he liked me, that he took me to lunch and I got a chance to meet his daughter and his wife.
Oh, wow.
Now I didn't know he had, there was an interracial marriage. I just want to come along with you. I want to get to know you because I was starting voiceovers at that point.
Oh my gosh.
Really interesting. But here's the key, Jessica. He never watched the movies. He did every single movie out there you can think of. But he watched like 2 movies a year. What he did, he read over 250 books. And he did crossword puzzles in between each take, if you can imagine that.
Yep.
Wow.
You learn a lot from books. That degree in literature has stood me well, and I love to read. But I also realize that I can learn so much from watching film. Not necessarily anything I've done, but as a writer, as an actor, as somebody who can see structure, I've learned so much, especially if you're watching a really outstanding series and you see how it's built. It's amazing. I always say, be a sponge. Learn from everything, but that's a great story. I mean, because, we're losing the ability to read,
and I love talking about reading. I have a really big pet peeve with, I know that texting, it's it's quick, it's fast, you can abbreviate everything, but when you misspell easy words, it drives me bonkers. I don't care if you're trying to
there. Like there, and there.
Or your. It's not you are hand. No, it's Y-O-U-R hand. It's your hand, not you are hand. These things like this drive me insane.
Oh, good that I'm not alone. I think that's because of the speed most of the time, or the spell correct. Because I have an iPhone, and that will correct things, and if I don't read them over,
That's
Could be
true.
very-
Autocorrect will get you.
Oh, yeah.
That'll get you too. I agree.
Jessica,
But
just
still.
in case, it was autocorrect. Just in case I did that.
You probably have, but that wasn't what I was talking about. There was another one that I received today. I was like, come on. Really though,
Oh, no.
out of 5, I'd say 4. There's something weird with it.
And it's speed. A lot of it's speed. But I tell you how. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm
I was
just
going to say one of the things I have found about texting that is positive, and that especially since the pandemic, is just being able to reach out to people. You know, friends. Even if it's just thinking about you, and you do a little emoji, just something. And also, as I have a dog, so I walk at least twice a day, and I'll walk in different neighborhoods, and if I see something like in our neighborhood, in the Rancho, they have an aquarium zoo that's all recyclables, and so I made a cup snake that's really fun, snaky snake. But I did a video of that and sent it because that's the kind of stuff that lifts people. So I like using text in that manner a lot. So.
I agree. Or you can just send, well, my friends that know me, I just give them a 1 word, but
Perfect.
I normally tag it on to a video, something
that's
silly
great.
that I've done. And what's funny is I sent this, okay, so I made this ginormous vegetable soup, like 7 quarts worth of soup for my family and I earlier this week, and I included every vegetable in the world. But I also, instead of getting baby bok choy, I got this huge bundle of bok choy, and one leaf was bigger than my face. Not kidding. And so I sent this video to some friends that I hadn't talked to in a while, and I was like, man, it's hot in here. Whew, I sure wish I had a fan. And then I'd pull out this bok choy leaf and start fanning myself with it. And all of them just like, Jess, you're so goofy. But
that's great. I love that.
But it's just stuff like that. So I agree. Like the short ones, it is very beneficial and really has been a lifesaver for all of us.
That and Zoom.
Just to share. Yes. Here we go. Here we are.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Do you remember your first job and what your reaction was when you got it?
Oh, yes. My first job that got me into AFTRA was, they were, do you know who Brian Cummings is? Brian Cummings. Yeah, he's done a lot of trailers. He's done all kinds of voiceover work. He was in Dawes's first class. I was in the second workshop. Anyway, he called me. He knew me from the workshop, and we had become friends. And he said, I'm doing like an MC thing. They're doing a screening of the Buddy Holly story. And if they choose you in your reaction, it'll be AFTRA. So I said, sure. And I kind of knew who Buddy Holly was, but I didn't really for sure know who he was. I knew he was a rock singer, and that I've since come to love his work. But I sat watching that and just couldn't stop from moving. So people were getting up and they were moving. And so he came up to me. I must have said something that was relevant and fun because they used it. And that was my first AFTRA job.
Wow.
So my second one was with Dawes directing, and this leads into a funny Robin Williams story. I love Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes over the annotated version of Sherlock Holmes. And I'm so sorry about the background here. So anyway, so Dawes said, I've got a part for a Scottish maid on this radio show we're doing, Radio Mystery Theater, I think it was. And, you can do the Scottish maid. So I did it, and it was one of the people, there was a star whose name I will not talk about, but he was not the most supportive person, but I held my ground because I was like the newcomer. So anyway, fast forward to, I'm also taking an improv class at that time. And this is with Off the Wall. And one of the graduates of that class, who was then doing Mork and Mindy, was Robin Williams. So it's my first time in the advanced class, and they're all writers, and they're all doing stuff, like on MASH and whatever. And so I'm waiting, right? Because Robin goes up in the beginning, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just kind of waiting until it's safe. I think it's safe. Well, I was the last one. And because Robin had gone first, he was the next one. So I'm on stage, and the premise was one of you is a professional, and one of you is going to that professional for help. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm Sherlock. I just finished reading the annotated version. So I'm going to be Sherlock Holmes's great, 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 great niece. And I am going to a psychologist because I am stymied by living in my great, 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 great uncle's shadow. So that's the premise. And then Robin gets up on stage, and I just thought, oh my God, why me? But it was great. It was absolutely magical. He gave room on the stage. He didn't dominate. He listened. We played back and forth. And then the greatest thing was, he at the very end, he did this. He said, "And you know who I really am?" And he did one of these. And I go, oh, "Professor Moriarty!" And that was. But it was a real positive affirmation for me that I could hold my own with somebody like that, that I could think on my feet, that I could grab that character, whoever she was, and, you know, be able to be very precise, because she was, after all, his great, 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 great niece. So had that kind of logic going, but she, you know, was under this terrible shadow of not being good enough. So it was just a real positive affirmation in the beginning of my career.
And it's, man, that's such a testament though to Robin Williams as well,
Oh.
because he honored you and your craft, you know, and regardless of how acclaimed he already was at the time, you know, it was, he played with you as an equal, and that's what it's about.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yes.
You share, you don't dominate. Yeah. And I mean, and that was I honestly cannot think of anybody, not that there aren't a lot of wonderful comedians, but who thinks that fast. If you've ever seen that, one of the first HBO videos he did, oh my God, he is so facile and so fast.
Whew.
And switches so quickly and is there. It was hard to keep up with him, but it's
but
just
you did. That's huge too.
Yes, he also wasn't
mortified.
doing like 50 characters either. He was doing one.
It's true.
But yeah. So I would call that a bit of a God shot. Okay.
Woo.
Okay. I'm going to throw you into the fray, but you've just read Sherlock Holmes, so you know this territory.
Oh man.
So.
Man. Well, Mona, I was going to ask you about, I would put myself up in one of the massive Muppet fans. So how was your introduction into the Fraggle Rock scene? I know that it was the animated side, but were you ever able to meet Jim Henson and the crew, and how did that all come to be?
I never met Jim Henson, but he was the one that did the final selections, and there were 1,200 people auditioning for those parts.
Wow.
But the interesting thing is, right about the time that I guess right after I met Dawes, it was after, because he wrote a monologue for me about her. It was a woman who ran an ad agency, and her name was Majesty. And at that time in Los Angeles, there was something called the TAPLA program, which was Theater Arts Program of Los Angeles, and it was funded by the government. And the idea was that you would go into the schools and rec centers and do multicultural bilingual shows. So I auditioned as an actress. I did one of the songs that I wrote, and I did this piece. And so I got a call back, and I'm thinking, this is a theatrical company. I think there were 5 theatrical companies. And there's a group of, it happened to be all men, like 5 men. And the first question man asked me is, how do you feel about being on your knees? And I'm going, what? He said, well, do you mind, hammering and doing, scenery stuff? No, I don't mind that. And then at the very end, they had Paul Hansen, who was a freaking genius, who was the director of the LA Moving Van and Puppet Company, had us, he had a little song, and we had to repeat it and sing it after him. It was only then that I realized that that particular company was a puppet company, a hand puppet company. And so I have never worked a hand puppet in my life. I had never worked a marionette. I didn't know anything about it, but His idea was to take inanimate objects, basically milk cartons or whatever, and turn them into puppets. It was way ahead of its time, and it was just when the Muppets were really out there. It was before the Muppet Show, because they had used them on, I think, the first season of Saturday Night Live. So we're going back to 1977. So
Okay.
I get in the puppet company. He was a very smart man. Paul is a smart man. He felt it would be easier to take a good actor and turn them into a puppeteer and have them work a puppet, as opposed to taking a puppeteer. And not that there aren't plenty of good actors out there as puppeteers, but back then, but take a puppeteer and turn them into an actor. So he utilized all of our talents, and we would sit in front of a mirror doing this. Whoa, that is so cool. And of course, when Dawes used to do Scooby-Doo and Quick Draw McGraw, he had two puppets that someone had made him, but he would do it with his hands. And you would think, oh my God, you would see them. They would mind magic, which is, my whole thing about how we use our imagination. And you would see them. So that gave me enormous training, because years later, what I realized, first time I ever dubbed anything, I just knew how to do it. Now, part of that is I'm a musician, but I didn't know. And the people I did that with were saying, well, have you done this before? I said, no. But what I realized is, see this? That's exactly what you're doing when you dub.
You're bringing it to life. It becomes physicality.
Well,
your voice becomes
matching
an
the
actual
rhythm.
object.
Yeah, you're matching the rhythm. So I think all of that came together. And when I had this job, it was the first anime I ever did was Harlock. And I did a little girl for Wally Burr. And I just looked at the numbers, looked at the screen and the script, and and it was just there. I would love to take credit for it, but I think it was all the experience doing hand puppets and sitting in front of that mirror. So it's interesting when you look back. One of the great advantages of being older is you can look back and you see how one thing leads to another, and knowledge here leads to knowledge there, and so on and so forth.
Oh no, when you're looking back now at South Park, did you think it was going to last this long and still keep going? Because I was there when Matt and Trey first came up with it for the movie. And
oh my God!
The last time that we were together, we were in Langham and Pasadena. We were at a chocolate fondue party, Matt and Trey and I and two of my other friends, talking about South Park.
You're kidding me.
Oh.
I had no idea. That is so neat, because I did not originate those voices. That was Mary Kay. Did you know that?
No.
Mary, this would have been 1999. I knew Mary Kay because we had done benefits. There used to be a thing called voiceover cares about life. And I guess it had probably been in its third or fourth year, maybe fifth year. And Mary Kay, I knew her because we would sing in the chorus. And in 1999, it was in August, our husbands sat together, and she was talking about how exciting it was, and something I think it's okay to say this now. Apparently her mom had been diagnosed with cancer, and they were concerned about how they were going to cover the medical expenses. And I think Trey and Matt said, don't worry about it. So, and then unfortunately, and nobody saw this coming, she died in November of that year. But at the benefit in August, she had said to me, you should be doing more announcer stuff. And shortly thereafter, maybe a year or so later, I ended up doing Publix grocery store tag ads for years. But that was one of the most horrific things that ever happened, as far as I know, in voiceover. Here was this amazing talent, one of the kindest, sweetest human beings most people have ever met. There's a story here too. the adult animation project that I'm doing, The Adventures of Puss in Take, A Survivor's Guide to Relationships, actually came out of a gift idea that I had. And this was in the early 90s. And it came out of the fact that, you know, most of the time when people are going together, you know, you invest all that time and energy, and then, you know, so you get married or you begin living together, and then children come and you're working on your career. And little by little, if you don't keep in touch with each other in some sort of intimacy, I'm not saying, you know, necessarily making love, but being loving, you drift further and further apart. And so I had created this gift. I don't know if you can see, if you look at the hearts in the background, it was a box. And in the box, I had created 10 playful seduction scenarios written in recipe style that you could actually perform with each other. There was a little heart-shaped pillow that had a pocket that you could leave notes in, and there was a garter, and there was a very sexy song that I wrote called Let My Lips Do the Walking. And I had gotten 22 investors to invest $1,000. I let them know that it was high risk, but I thought, no problem, I'll be able to launch this. But not having that particular talent, it didn't take off. And I remember realizing that, and I was in the car driving and crying because I didn't want to disappoint people. And up next to me drives Mary Kay. And we're at a stoplight, and she rolls down and she says, Mona, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And I said, no, I'll be okay, but thank you so much. But just that you would have taken the time, taken the moment to do that. And that was her. That was not put on. That was who Mary Kay was. Long story short, I never let that idea get away from me. And so in the early 2000s, I began developing the idea with animation. So it's just interesting to me how things all come together. And because South Park has helped me in a lot of ways financially, I've been able to invest my own money in this until it takes off. So I don't know the reasoning of things. If somebody said to me, well, if you had the choice of doing South Park or Mary Kay being alive to do it, I would have said Mary Kay, because I know enough to know that things happen in the universe way beyond my ken. But when I had to listen to her voice to audition for the characters, I kept hearing her say, oh, Mo, you can do this. You can do this, Mo. Don't worry about it. Come on, I can't. If I could, I would, but I can't. So, and that is what got me through it, because I would listen to her and I would cry. Nobody ever wants to get a part anywhere because someone has been hurt or can't do it in that manner. So.
Right.
You got about 60 seconds. Go ahead, Jessica, get your last question.
All right. So it's about actually the basics, the technique, the breathing. I am so curious how you have kept your voice healthy and intact doing Sheila for so long, because I'm just going, oh, ouch, my throat. Oh, it hurts because she's so loud and graggly. You know what I mean? So
yes,
how are you doing that? Healthfully.
Well, a lot of training in opera helped. I use my diaphragm. And the other thing is maybe even before I started doing South Park, I realized that when you go to a party, and South Park used to have these all the time. Maybe it was more after we had done the first couple of years. Comedy Central used to do these parties, and the music was always really loud, which was not good for my ears. I still have really good hearing today because I don't listen to music that's really loud. But the other thing is, you're talking over and you're talking like this, because at a party when the music is blasting, you can't freaking hear. So I don't do that. But that's basically it. I always make sure that I really am supporting the tone. But with Sheila, that she's not hard. I could do Sheila. If I could stand on my head, I could do Sheila on my head. But and also everybody has certain rhythms that are natural to them. And I'm sure this was true of Mary Kay with her, because when we did the memorial for Mary Kay, I found out that Sheila was actually based on her aunt. Okay. We talk like that. Oh my God, it is so exciting to see this. That's how she talked. Well, I'm Jewish. And even though I didn't actually have anybody from New York who talked like that, there's something in my DNA where, in fact, in family business, they're Jewish. Not blatantly so. And I mean, nobody's talking with an accent, but certain syntax, certain rhythm is Jewish. So what are you doing now? You think you're going to do that? Just the way people talk, you know?
Mhm.
So anyway, she's very natural for me. And before doing her, I used to go to conventions doing Joan Rivers. Oh, wake up and smell the chicken. What? What are you talking about? Huh? Hello? Hello? Like my face? Oh, 20 surgeries later, and here it is. She's a lot harder to do and sustain than Sheila.
Of course, yeah.
I
So
got
it's
it.
diaphragm, and you push the sound up.
For which? For Sheila?
Yeah, so you support, but you.
Oh, I hit, yes. And also with Sheila, you see the jaw dropping? Oh my God, darling. How are you? It's a much different kind of sound in terms of placement.
Right.
I have a, oh, by the way, could I take a picture of this?
Go ahead. Make it
If
quick.
I don't, the woman who does my social media will kill me.
We're going to have a part 2 coming up.